If you want to retire rich enough and young enough to enjoy it, instead of chasing a number that keeps moving higher, sacrificing your health for financial security that you already have, or waking up at 65 wondering where your 50s went, there are 4 red flags screaming at you to retire now, and ignoring them is the most expensive mistake that you'll ever make. I'm Jason. I retired at 39, and now I spend my time studying everything about retirement. Not from some textbook, but from actually living it, and watching dozens of other people go through this terrifying yet exhilarating transition. Now, let's be clear, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do have something that most people giving retirement advice don't have. I've actually done it. And I've seen what happens when people wait too long versus when they just, they take the leap at the right moment. So today, I'm going to walk you through the 4 signs that you might actually be ready to retire in your 50s, even if every instinct you have is screaming, not yet. Because honestly, here's what nobody tells you. Waiting for perfect timing doesn't just cost you money. It costs you the best years that you'll never get back. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why those arbitrary retirement ages, 59½, 62, 65, they might be holding you hostage for no reason. More importantly, you'll know whether you're one of those people who's technically free right now, but you're just waiting for permission that you don't actually need. So let's talk about it. So I have this friend Glenn, and I watched him work for 3 extra years after he was already financially ready to retire. Like, he just kept saying, just 1 more year for safety. You know how that goes. And then at 57, his body made the decision for him. He had a stroke that took away his ability to travel, to hike, to do all the stuff that he'd been putting off. He had $1.8 million sitting in his nest egg, and at least 6 months of physical therapy ahead of him. All right, so sign number 1 that you should retire in your 50s before it's too late is that you have more than enough money, but it never feels like enough. Glenn, he'd hit $1.5 million when he first told me he was thinking about retiring at 54. That was 3 years before the stroke. His house was paid off. His spending was pretty modest, about $60,000 a year. By every mathematical measure, he was ready. Like the 25 times rule said he needed exactly $1.5 million for $60,000 annual spending. He had it. This isn't even taking into account his Social Security. But every single time that we talked, he'd say the same thing. Just want a little bit more cushion, What if something goes wrong? Here's the uncomfortable truth. And I get why this is hard. But if you've already hit a major savings milestone, let's say $800,000, $1 million, $3 million, with a paid off house, and you're still there hesitating, the problem isn't financial, it's psychological. And honestly, I totally get it. We've been conditioned our entire lives to believe that more is always better, right? More money equals more safety. But that's not how life actually works. Nearly 40% of Americans retire earlier than they planned. And most of the time, it's not by choice. Health crisis, layoff, burnout. The body or the boss decides before you do. Glenn thought he was being smart, being careful, but what he was actually doing was gambling. He was betting that his health, his energy, and his time would still be there when he finally felt ready. He lost that bet. So here's the question that you need to sit with. Do you have at least 25 times your annual spending saved? Notice I said spending, not income. If you spend $60,000 a year, that's $1.5 million. If you spend $50,000, that's $1.25 million. Do you have Social Security, a pension, or other guaranteed income that covers your essentials? Housing, food, healthcare. If yes to both, you're probably already there. The math isn't your problem. Your fear is. Real quick, I went from trading my life away for a paycheck to living on my own terms with $1 million and the world is my office by 39. Want the same freedom? Subscribe to this channel now. I break down the exact strategies that actually work and the brutal reality of what early retirement demands from you. Because you need both to escape the trap and actually stay free. Moving on to sign number 2, you're not 59½ yet, but you have tax-smart money access. One of the biggest lies, and I mean this, one of the biggest lies that the financial media has fed us is that you have to wait until 59½ to retire. That's only true if all your money is locked up in traditional IRAs or 401ks. But If you've been even halfway strategic, you might already have years of penalty-free income just sitting right there. At 54, Glenn had about $600,000 in a taxable brokerage account, another $300,000 in Roth IRA contributions, not conversions, contributions, that he could pull out anytime. The remaining $600,000 was in his 401k. He didn't need to wait for some IRS birthday to access his own money. And yet, well, he kept working. Here's what most people miss. Brokerage accounts have no age restrictions. None. Roth contributions can come out tax-free, penalty-free, whenever you want, after 5 years. And even if most of your money's in pre-tax retirement accounts, there's strategies like the 72T that let you take penalty-free withdrawals before 59½. There's also the rule of 55 if you leave your employer at 55 or later. You can tap your 401k without penalties. The point is this, that retirement age that you think is mandatory, it's often just a myth. See, with the right structure, maybe 3 to 5 years of expenses in accessible cash or brokerage funds, some Roth contributions, a little planning, you can retire in your mid-50s without even triggering a penalty. Glenn had about $900,000 in accessible money between his brokerage account and Roth contributions. That's 15 years of his $60,000 annual spending before he'd even need to touch his 401k at 59½. He had the structure, he just didn't have either the knowledge or the courage. And that cost him 3 years that he'll never see again. Sign number 3 that you should retire before it's too late. You're working for safety, but you're sacrificing opportunity. Now, stick with me here because in just a minute, I'm going to tell you about a conversation that Glenn and I had 2 weeks after his stroke. What he told me, it changed how I think about retirement timing forever. But first, let's talk about this trap. You run the numbers, your savings are solid, but you keep showing up to work every single day, pushing the goalpost back. 2 years ago, you said you'd retire at 55. Now you're 55 and saying, well, maybe 57. It's always just 2 more years, right? You tell yourself it's for security, but what are you really doing? You're trading the most physically vibrant, energetically alive years of your life for diminishing returns. Because here's the thing, working longer, yeah, gives you more money. It doesn't give you more time, more health, or more energy. The years between 55 and 65, those are the golden years of retirement, if you actually use them. That's when your knees still work for the big hikes. That's when you still have the stamina for the month-long trip. That's when your grandkids are still little enough to think of you as fascinating. Wait too long, and you're retiring into doctor's appointments and declining energy. I remember reading some study once. It found that 61% of retirees wish that they'd spent more time enjoying life rather than working longer. Glenn was one of them now. 2 weeks after his stroke, sitting in the hospital room, he looked at me and said, I have all this money and nothing but rehab ahead of me. I'd give half it back for 3 more healthy years. That hit me hard because what he was saying out loud was what so many people feel too late. Money's useless without time and health. Your biggest asset isn't your portfolio, it's on the clock. So, quick question for you. What's the one thing that you'd do in retirement if you knew that your health would hold up? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and honestly, your answers actually help shape future videos. Sign number 4, you're craving freedom, but you haven't tried slowing down. Look, if the idea of full retirement makes you uneasy, maybe you're worried about losing purpose or you're not sure what you'd even do with all that time, then a phased retirement might be your answer. And this is what I wish Glenn had tried. Instead of quitting cold turkey, what if you went part-time for a year? What if you consulted 2 days a month? What if you took a 6-month sabbatical and tested what retirement actually feels like before you fully commit? See, here's why this works. Most people don't know what they're retiring into. They know what they're leaving, the stress, the commute, the deadlines, but they don't know what's on the other side. And it's that unknown that creates paralysis. A phased retirement lets you build identity, find that purpose, test your spending, and ease into the life that you actually want. Actually, there was another study that found that 47% of retirees who did a phased transition reported better financial outcomes and greater satisfaction. They didn't just retire, they designed the retirement. And now, well, Glenn, he couldn't do that, but you can. If you drop to part-time for even 2 years, you slash your portfolio withdrawals, you bridge healthcare coverage, and you give yourself space to figure out who you are outside of work. And honestly, you might find that you don't need as much money as you thought. You might find that you're braver than you believed. All right, let me bring this full circle. So Glenn, he's doing better now. He's walking again, his speech is improving, but he'll never get those 3 years back. He'll never do that Patagonia trek. He'll never take his grandkids to Europe while they're still young enough and amazed by everything. If you're watching this video, if you've made it this far, there's a reason. Some part of you already knows that you're ready. Some part of you is screaming that it's time. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting for permission. Nobody's going to tap you on the shoulder and tell you it's okay to live your life. Nobody's going to hand you a certificate that says, congratulations, you saved enough to be happy now. That permission, it has to come from you. Glenn told me something else in the hospital room that I think about almost every day. He said, I thought I was building security, but all I really was doing was building a bigger pile of money that I'll never get to use the way I wanted. He had the trip to New Zealand planned. He had a Harley Davidson picked out. He had time with the grandkids all mapped out in his head. And now he still struggles to tie his shoes by himself. I don't want that to be you. I don't want you sitting on a hospital bed or a retirement home at 70, looking back at your 50s thinking, why didn't I go when I had the chance? Why did I wait for perfect when good enough was already there? Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just about money. It's about the fact that you will never, ever be as physically capable as you are right now. Your 55-year-old knees are better than your 65-year-old knees. Your 57-year-old heart is stronger than your 67-year-old heart. Every single year that you delay is a year you're stealing from the best part of retirement, the part where you can actually do the things that you've been dreaming about. I went from drowning in conventional wisdom to breaking free with a real plan in about 18 months. Ready to face what's really holding you back? Watch this next.